Hi there guys, and in this video this is just going to be a brief preview to look at a couple of watches that I've received in for some work. This here is the case for a rotary that I'm servicing and cleaning up for a fella, and that's the case and crystal cleaned up, which I've come up quite nicely. I'm quite pleased with those. And here we've got a couple of watches. We have this very nice gold coloured cased Buler jump hour, and this is if you've watched my video on the Trafalgar jump hour, you'll notice similarities. It's exactly the same in pretty much every respect, with the exception of this being a gold dial and a gold case. So I'm expecting a BFG 866 movement inside here, and in this one here we have a gorgeous Breitling Chronograph, a 50s Breitling Chronograph, and a crown and stem, which hopefully we are going to be able to fit into this, because the previous crown was broken, sadly. There are some scuff and scrape marks on the case back where it has been opened previously with a case knife. So down here on the bench mat, you can see we've got the Buler and the Breitling here side by side, and we'll just put the stem over there out of the way. I'm going to take a quick look at the Buler first of all. You'll notice I'm trying something a little bit different with the angle here. I've managed to get an adapter for my my decent camera so that I can use my decent lenses, which is nice, rather than rely on my old ancient camcorder, which kind of took up a bit of space at the back of the bench back here. So I've got this suspended facing down, and hopefully this is going to give a better overall view. So feel free to pop a message in the comments and let me know what you think about this. So I'm just going to pop the Breitling to the side for a second. And it's a nice little case, got an index ring inside, and yeah, it's quite nice, and the dial is definitely much, let's put this on here a second, is just like the Trafalgar that I've got. So I'll pop that out of there like so, and I'm going to just use the dial there to protect that. And yeah, sure enough, we've got a BFG 866 sitting in there. I'm just going to give that a little bit of encouragement with a puff of air, and is that wound? Okay, that's wound up tight, but I have no movement of the escape wheel, but the pallet and the balance are moving. So most likely that's just old and gummed up and in need of a refresh. I'm just going to try, you probably can't see this particular angle, but what I'm doing here is just establishing if the balance runs side on and upside down. I think it might. It's a little bit sticky upside down, but it is spinning, and it looks reasonably clean and in good condition. This is a 1 joule variant. The 1 joule in question being that one that you can see there. If these 866 movements, pin pallet movements, they come in variants of 1 to 17 joules. If it's a 1 joule movement, the single joule will be the cap joule on the upper pivot of the balance always, and then anything up to 7 joules dotted through, 17 joules rather, dotted throughout the movement, with the exception of course of the pallet stones, because it's a pin pallet. So that one looks like it's potentially a straightforward one. That'll be interesting because I didn't film the entirety of my Trafalgar. I filmed a bit of it, but it'll be interesting because the wheels, when you take this dial off, the wheels underneath are somewhat tricky to remove. They're press fit and they're very, very tight, and I struggled for quite a bit with mine because I didn't want to damage it, and wondering if there was some sort of some way that they were locked in, and they're actually just press fit very, very tight. So it'll be interesting to be able to show you guys that one. So we'll pop that little fella to the side and we'll take a look at this little beauty. And look at that dial. Isn't that the most gorgeous dial? It's absolutely beautiful. Very similar in style, you'll notice, to the Landeron that I serviced a little while ago. The difference with this one being that guarantee that this case won't be a hollow case, and these use the Venus 188, I think. This one, the 170 has the dials top and bottom, and I think it's the 188 that has the dials side by side, off the top of my head. I'm not 100% sure, but let's take a look now. Somewhere where these battle scars are on the back, you can see, hopefully you can see that quite clearly. If I just focus on that for you. That's a little bit of a shame, but it's on the case back, so it's not, you know, it's not the end of the world. It's not the worst thing in the world. So I'm just going to, excuse me for a moment while I use my loop to double check where we are at. I see. And we have a little notch which is just here. Yeah, just there. So very, very little notch it is as well. Certainly not giving you much wiggle room. You can see why somebody's managed to scar this up in the past. There we go. Be very, very careful with these. And there's the movement. Look at that. Isn't that gorgeous? We have a swinging balance. That's always a good start. That's always a good sign. It looks reasonably clean. It doesn't look bad. A little bit grungy in places, but not too bad. Not too bad at all. Yeah, Venus cam lever movement, very, very similar in looks and operation to the Landeron that I did. A little cam lever movement there, start, stop. The difference, of course, in this one being that the start and stop are on the top pusher and the reset on the bottom. The Landeron was start on the top pusher and stop and reset on the bottom, but otherwise the same procedure of operation. Okay, so the chrono pushers are doing what they should do. That's always a good start. I need to clear some of these tools off the edge of my desk before I knock them all over the place. A few of these little screw heads that have been chewed up from previous use by the look. And here, this wheel that I'm just giving a gentle nudge to is the extended pivot of the fourth wheel for the second hand at 9 PM. And that is moving quite freely and nicely. It's not lined up particularly well with the intermediate wheel that meshes with the center chrono wheel. but that's something to look at. Problem with these, commonly seen on these and this type of movement, is this pivot getting bent when either fitting or removing this wheel. That's why I always use a staking set to fit this particular wheel. I have a Poljot 3133 here of mine, which has the exact same problem that I'm describing. I can't take the back off just now because it's really tight, this one, but the fourth wheel pivot is bent on this one, so that it will engage about half the revolution and then disengage and then re-engage again. And I'm hoping I'll be able to straighten that. Sometimes you can, sometimes you can't. It is a bit potluck, that one, but it looks reasonably straight. It just looks like it's not pressed down fully to mesh with that particular wheel. It's actually just catching the edge of the teeth there, but that's something we can look at. Now, let me get a screwdriver. We'll put the case back aside and we'll get the stem. Now, this stem is a replacement, but the fella who got it is not 100% sure that it's the correct stem. So, and that, as it currently stands, is not fully engaging, which means it's either not the correct stem, or it's possible that there are still remnants of the old stem inside, or it's also possible that something has been jiggled and is misaligned in the keyless works. So further investigation on that will be required. I'm not going to start forcing that into there because, as with anything to do with watches, you should never ever force anything. Okay, so that's actually tightening, which is a good sign, because that means that the setting lever is still attached to it. Usually 1.5 turns will be adequate to slacken off the setting lever enough to allow the stem to push in and engage. Now the square section is engaging with the ratchet wheel, or the winding pinion, you can see there, but it's not pressing right the way in, and there's quite a bit of stem sticking out there, so I'm not going to force that. I need to actually uncase this, take a closer look, and I might have to pop off the dial and take a look at the keyless works, because that would be quicker and easier than trying to go in through the top, because of course the problem with going in through the top is that all the chronograph works, or a good portion of the chronograph works, need to be removed, and that's a nuisance as well. The ratchet screw down there, I was actually going to try to wind this with a screwdriver, but the ratchet screw, which is down here where my screwdriver is pointing, is right behind this plate and this spring right here. So I might be able to get away with removing the hammer and this spring and give that a manual wind to see if it will tick, but I'm certainly going to need to uncase it to investigate the stem. The problem with the stem not locating, to establish whether there's actually remnants left in there or something amiss, and to establish if the stem is the correct one. So at the moment that looks quite nice. As I said, the balance is spinning, and it is spinning quite freely in all orientations, which is always a good sign, because that means the pivots are good, top and bottom, and nothing's binding particularly. Yeah, that's not looking bad. Let's say it's just going to need to be uncased and investigated in a little bit more detail. So that's pretty much all we've got for this one. I'm not going to go too in depth to this one. This is just a preliminary look so that I can get back to the fella who is the lucky owner of this beautiful, beautiful Breitling timepiece. For the moment, I'm going to pop this case back on. Thankfully, the case back itself is not actually damaged. It's just the plating that's been worn away, and unfortunately on this edge where there isn't a cutaway to lever the back off. But that could actually be replated, I suspect, quite easily. And the rest of the case is in really, really nice condition, and the crystal itself is not half bad at all. There's a couple of little light scuffs on it, but I would be quite happy to wear that as is and not worry about the scuffs on that. I'll snap that back in. Sometimes these snapback cases need a really good press from a case back press, and that's again, that applies to this pole jot of mine. And the back is really, really stiff to come off, and you cannot refit that without a case back press, which is nice in a way because you know it's not going to pop off unexpectedly, but a bit of a nuisance as well at the same time when you're working on them. So yeah, so fingers crossed on that one that we can get that in without too much aggravation. And if the mainspring is wound down and we can get that wound up and ticking, then I can pop that on the time grapher and have a look and see what's what with it. Okay, so thanks for watching this. I do have one which is currently in bits, sitting in my basket, waiting to go through the washing machine, and that's a beautiful old AS2066, which I will be filming for someone that I'm repairing. That was actually supposed to be done a couple of weeks ago, but because of the current situation, I knew I wasn't going to be travelling down there where I was going to be delivering it. So it was so it's kind of sat there for a little bit, and I've got another one on the side. So I will get round to this as soon as I'm able, and we'll see you in the next video.